a podcast on January 2026, U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick has disclosed that a much anticipated bilateral trade deal with India fell through because PM Modi refused to personally call President Trump to finalize it, despite agreement being fully negotiated. Lutnick stated that I set the deal up, but you had to have Modi call President Trump. They were uncomfortable with it, so Modi did not call, portraying Modi's stance as a firm negotiation tactic amid Trump's demand for direct leader-level engagement. This refusal highlights India's resolve not to yield to perceived personal pressures and high-stakes diplomacy, standing its ground on national interest, even as the unsigned pact leaves Indian exporters facing ongoing high U.S. tariffs, and underscores PM Modi's unyielding approach in protecting sovereignty against transactional demands from the Trump administration. Yes, so let's go across to our senior executive editor, Abhishek Kapoor, joining us. Abhishek, it's very, very clear where US itself is admitting, Abhishek, that PM Modi played hardball, and even though there was a lot of pressure on him to agree to trade terms, he did not do it.
Well, you see, we wish we could play that clip for the benefit of our audiences. We cannot because of copyright issues. This is coming in from an all-in podcast in which the U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick has had a comprehensive conversation on United States trade relationship with the rest of the world in the present, and in which he has spoken about why, while the U.S. could cut a deal with the likes of Indonesia and Australia and the United Kingdom, the U.S. has struggled with India. And though, of course, like it happens with typical Trump acolytes, he's talking about, he's putting up a brave face and saying, oh, this is how we deal with it. But the fact of the matter is that if you piece together as to what he's saying, essentially what he's saying is India and Prime Minister Modi stood their ground, and that they did not sign on the dotted line, and that if the United States thought that they could push around with someone like Narendra Modi, they failed, and that whatever deadlines that they put and the kind of conditions that they put, because India did not agree to them, India politely stayed steady but did not sign. So I think this is essentially a story for those who were trying to push a narrative that India has sort of in some ways buckled under pressure from Trump and his team and are not standing their ground. In fact, the impression that you get and the message that you get from this clip of Howard Lutnick, the Commerce Secretary of the United States and a part of and a member of the Trump team, is that India actually has stood its ground. Because remember, I know for a fact that the conversations were moving in the right direction for about 15% overall tariff, and that would have been in line with what the United States has offered to its friends, and India is or was a friend and ally. But subsequently, post the Operation Sindoor and the fact that India did not give credit to Trump for mediating in the ceasefire, and that we made it clear that because Pakistan cried uncle, that's why we stopped, things went downhill, and Trump imposed sanction after tariff after tariff, and then the trade talks essentially froze. Now, if you hear the conversation, Howard Lutnick is clearly saying that, okay, fine, the trade talks is stalled, but just one phone call from Narendra Modi would have sorted it out. But because the conditions were not conducive, and Prime Minister Modi also perhaps wanted to send across a message that he is not an easy a person to deal with if push comes to shove, and then I think things went downhill from there. So in a way, that really explains why the India-United States trade deal has not happened. Remember, this has come at a great cost, and not cost, but this has come at great consequences for the geopolitical dynamics for the United States also. For example, Shivangi, the Quad Summit was to take place in 2025 in India, and it had to be pushed because the trade deal is not happening, so Trump would not come, so the Quad Summit would not happen. It was pushed to January of 2026, even that is not happening. So I think the picture that emerges out of this one sliver of a clip of that podcast of 1.5 hours is when it comes to India, even the United States realizes that we are not a pushover, Narendra Modi is not a pushover, and that we will stand our ground.
That's right. And you know, Abhishek, we have been speaking about this for the past few months, how on every occasion, Prime Minister Modi has made it very clear that India will no longer be pushed around. India is very firm, and India has also spoken about time and again about nation first, about self-reliance.
Yes, absolutely. And if any more evidence was needed, not that there was one needed for those who have seen Prime Minister Modi closely over the last few years, for those who know how he functions and how he has conducted himself, particularly under pressure and this kind of situation or these kind of situations earlier. But the fact of the matter is that in this case, there is all evidence to prove that despite things falling in place, just because the Americans wanted to push in and slip in the dairy products business of the U.S. into Indian trade deal, the fact that they wanted certain conditions which were not amenable to Indian farming community, most of whom are small and marginal farmers, and so the Modi government really, put its foot down that these two conditions cannot be met. And then, of course, as I said, the whole downhill post the Operation Sindoor. So those two things came together, and Americans have really realized that it's not easy to push around with India like it could be with other countries that they deal with, even in Europe. So, Lutnick in that podcast actually mentions that how we could manage with the United Kingdom and Keir Starmer, how easily they could manage and get a deal with Australia or even Indonesia, but not with India. And the reason it could not happen with India is because the Modi government was really firm that these are the red lines. Forget about these red lines and then we can cut a deal. If you are insisting that these red lines need to be breached, then okay, fine. We are okay not having a trade deal, or we will have it as and when the United States realizes that those red lines are red lines and need to be respected as such.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us, Abhishek.